Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Career Summit Singapore. I'm Tony, CEO and co-founder of BestTalk. This year's theme is coping with the changing environment. So in the next 1 hour, feel free to join us for a journey for fresh ideas and also insightful career advice. And I hope this will inspire you to handle current difficult time. So this summit is brought to you by BestTalk and also our collaborator universities in Singapore and overseas. And BestTalk is a Singapore startup providing customized career mentoring services from 2016. And we have helped over 1,000 students and working professionals succeeded in landing dream jobs. So you can scan the QR code here to join our Telegram channel, specially created for today's event. So after you join, you can get updates on exclusive job posting, internship opportunities, and also some free career development. Sorry about that. Yeah, due to some network issues. Yeah, so I'm back now. Just give me a second. Yeah. Let me reshare my screen here. Okay. Yeah, so we all face difficult time, right? So sometimes even the network will give us some difficult time. Okay, so before we begin, we have some house rules. So first of all, mute your microphone and also turn off your video, and also we encourage you to use the chat function. Yeah, so if you are unfamiliar with your Zoom, right? So your chat phone, you are here. Okay. So and for those, if you ask the question in our chat and we are unable to answer you due to the time limitation, so feel free to join our Telegram group. Yeah. So and we will still answer your question in the Telegram group over there. Okay. And to warm up and also to test you whether you are familiarized with your chat function. So let us do a small exercise here, right? So you can see here, we are in our Career Summit Singapore today also in support of Sundeck. So Sundeck is a Singapore NGO, aims to help people with disabilities to live each day positively with tailored programs of constructive activities. So today you will also be part of a charity initiative. Yeah, so we call 30-second challenge. So one job we can overcome COVID-19. Okay, so we will have our chat here, and we will do screen recording. I will play the video here. So along the way, please type "Together we can overcome COVID-19." So as part of that, you also contribute your efforts to the charity event held by the Sundeck. Okay, so wait. Signal 3, 2. So you can just feel free to type in the chat. Together we can overcome COVID-19. Yes, great. And then remember to put your name here. We will record the whole screen and also to show a part of the initiative. Come on, guys. I know you are there. Now we have over 100 people, close to 200 people now. Yeah, guys. Great. Okay, thank you guys for your participation. Yeah. So hopefully you are familiarized yourself with the chat function. Okay. So now we are back to our agenda. Yeah, so so you can still keep typing. Yeah, so I believe so our agenda today. So when I'm choosing the theme for this year's summit, I actually went to talk a dozen of our BestTalk human resource mentors, asking them what are the top skills for career success in the view of COVID-19, right? Actually, all of them mentioned about adaptability, right? So So that's why our keynote speaker today will share their personal views and also the insights surrounding the theme coping with the changing environment. So each speaker will have 10 minutes, no Q&A sessions. Yeah. So if you have any question, just feel free over that. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker today, Ruomei Chua. So Ruomei is a Chief Impact Officer at Smiling Up the World Impact Consulting. As a global speaker, startup pitch coach, brand storyteller, career consultant, she hired more than 12,000 people from 25 countries. So her passion is working with professionals in their 20s, 40s to unearth their callings. So to start off our virtual summit, Ruomei will be sharing creatively turning the COVID crisis into a secret, career secret sauce. So let's welcome Ruomei. Ruomei, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Tony, and thank you, Ines, Daphne, and everyone working behind the scenes. Sharon as well. Thank you to everybody for being here. So, all right, the time is ticking, right? But before I start the proper sharing, I wanted to get us into the right mindset, and that is that constraints can be beautiful. And I want to say this as somebody that graduated in the last global financial crisis. I know the current crisis is a lot more global and it's a lot more massive than the GFC back in 09 and 08. But I also graduated in that crisis, and I'm here to say constraints are beautiful. Now, think of it. Why are Asians, and especially Chinese people, known as the best cooks? It's actually not because they were rich. It's precisely because there were constraints. For a long time, they had economic constraints, and so they had to, in Chinese, 物尽其用. We had to do everything we could, right, to be very creative with the limited resources we have. So today, since Tony and team has only given us 10 minutes each, I thought, okay, and my topic has got to do with how do you creatively turn the COVID crisis into your career secret sauce? So I'm going to I came up with this COVID recipe just for today's session, and it's born out of a 10-minute constraint. So let's jump right in, shall we? And so it follows COVID. Now, the first C is create creatively. What I mean by this is, many times, if you think about it, when you go for interviews, even before Circuit Breaker, the World Economic Forum was already saying that by 2022, one of the top skills that employers want to see is creative thinking, complex problem solving, right? The ability to adapt and to self-teach. And with all of that, is that they want to see you create something. So when I say create creatively, I mean, for example, right now, there are tons of free webinars like the one that you're listening to right now, summits. There's also a lot of free massive online courses, MOOCs, Coursera, LinkedIn, GA Academy. There should be nothing stopping you from using this time to learn a new skill, but don't just stop there, right? You learn a new skill. Let's say you are a marketer and you picked up the data visualization through LinkedIn, and then you had that badge. Take that skill and then think next, what employer do I want to get an internship or full-time job with? And what skill do I want to exhibit? So let's say you want to differentiate yourself as somebody who is not just an ordinary marketeer, but a marketeer that understands data and can put things into visualizations and infographics. Please, by all means, go look at their website, look at their products and brands, right? And use that new skill that you have to come up with a new infographic, a new data visualization for them, right? You can also start writing articles, LinkedIn articles, for example. It doesn't even have to be a blog site. And you know what this does for you is at the end of the day, when you go for the interviews or even when you start applying, think of this as an audio visual cover letter, right? Instead of saying, I am someone that takes initiative, I am a self-starter, I do things, you show it. And you show it through your portfolio of things that you have now created, especially during a crisis situation like this, right? We need people that can do and show us that they have done, not just say that they are doers. Then this brings me to my next point, which is observing opportunities, the O's here. What I mean by this is inspiration for action comes from starting from our environment. You want to observe what gaps and problems there are. For example, COVID. What opportunities has it brought to the fore because of the problems? For example, you might see that social workers are really scrambling on the ground, or you might see that hawkers initially they were scrambling, right? Because now it's 100% delivery or takeaway, and traditional delivery platforms, the commission level was too high, so they were a bit stranded. Then came up Hawkers United Taobao 2020, right, which has many hawkers on it and it ends up being spam. Again, that could be an opportunity for you. Let's say you are a data scientist and programmer, or you're an app designer. Don't just create an app for nothing. Think, okay, if I go through the Facebook page of Hawkers United Taobao 2020, I see that there's so many threads, and I see that people sometimes post, let's say, Bukit Batok hawkers, right? There might be 10 different hawkers posting at different days, but actually they're geographically extremely close. All it takes maybe is someone like you to create an algorithm to make everything rest on a single platform, and then maybe you could even suggest bundles, suggest bundling people and hawkers by geography so that you maximize the value proposition that they offer to their customers, right? But it starts from you being very, very observant of your opportunities. In fact, I wanted to share a quote here, and the quote is that related to C and O, it's that if opportunity doesn't knock, you go and build that door, right? And when it comes to observing opportunities, each of you, please do not be that person that walks through the forest and cannot see firewood, right? There are lots, the larger the problem, the greater the gaps, the more there's opportunity for you to act, right? So once you observe the opportunities, then now you can deliver value, right? So when you observe the trends, for example, that remote working, right, or at least blended working is here to stay. And even when people go back to work, they have to observe some sort of safe distancing measures. So how can we create spaces that are safe in terms of a health and infectious disease perspective, but yet natural, so that it doesn't hinder the natural social, emotional interactions, the spontaneity that we want with our colleagues in a physical workplace. So for example, if today you are a designer or you are even an engineer, there's again nothing to stop you from observing that trend, right? And then creating, adding value and creating, for example, transparent dividers that we've already started seeing, or something that's even portable. Or for example, you want to be a consultant, right? Is there something that you could do with, say, the webinars that you have been listening to? Can you maybe improve upon the matrices and frameworks, maybe come up with your own to help guide companies through this crisis? Again, right, demonstrating the skills that you need as a consultant already on the job, adding value before you even join a company. Because all companies want to look for people that can add value straight away. And now with cost being such a huge thing, they want people that can do this with minimal cost, really, preferably free, right? Now, let's say you are a business person, you're a marketing person, right? And you know that, say, right now a lot of companies are scrambling to create new revenue channels, to create new customer opportunities. Again, you could pitch them, you could create a deck, you could create a video, you could say, hey, you know, company X, I'm applying for a BD role, right? But I noticed that your company has been very badly hit in this crisis, but I thought that with this new trend emerging, there seems to be an opportunity that your company can play very well in. And this would be my pitch on your behalf if I were already a consultant in your company, for example, or a marketer or a business development person in your company. A very classic example here is the very famous Airbnb job application. If you don't know about it, go Google. I think it's called Nina for Airbnb, for being a letter. So Nina was a classic girl. She applied a lot of times. She couldn't get to a dream job of being a BD or marketeer at Airbnb. So she thought, okay, she put together actually a pitch deck, almost a deck, to pitch Airbnb according to the style of their own website, to say that this is what Airbnb is great in, but these are the gaps. For example, you haven't targeted the Middle Eastern market, right? And this is why you should target them. And these are all the events and exhibitions that might go along with it. And this is why I can help you. And this is why I'm passionate about your company. And these are the roles that I can help you add value in. I share that example because this is so important. Think of it as the freemium model. You think about the best apps that you use. When you started using them, they were free. Then when you realized how useful they were, they have demonstrated their value to you, it was very natural for you to then pay that little amount to continue using an app that was truly giving value to you. right? Google Maps, for example, or WhatsApp. Even today, if it charged me $20, I would buy it because I'm so reliant on it, right? So then you want to, now all this creating, observing, valuing is important. Sorry, let me go back to view to the future. I just want to remind everybody that, again, this is a marathon, okay? And after 12 years of working, having graduated in the crisis, I want to say that as much as we might be tempted to feel a little anxious in the moment, and that's natural, I want you to remember that in Chinese we say 前面的路还很长, right? So just take your time a little bit and remember that you are not constrained by your immediate circumstances. So it is okay, right? This little detour might actually be for the better. And even if it's not in the short term, it's not going to compromise you majorly for the future. So just kind of keep your senses around you for that. Fourth one is really important to introspect and identify what you are strong in and what you care about, especially during this season. Why this is so important is, think about it, right? You know, it's the classic difference between what we call spray and pray, you know, where you cast out 100 resumes and cover letters and hope that one of them lands an interview and eventually a job. Spray and pray versus what I call aim and stay. Rather than spray and pray, I rather you aim and stay. And what I mean is, you really want to dig deep and ask yourself, okay, interesting. What are some things that people always say, hey, you're excellent at? You know, anytime we want someone to do this, you are the go-to person. Or we have never seen somebody handle this situation and defuse tension as well as you can, right? Reflect on that. Reflect on what makes you tick, what energizes you, what comes naturally to you. Where do you seem to have a competitive edge over others and where it aligns with your values? What industry topics, what kinds of work are you very passionate about? And then match it with what I said earlier, the opportunities and trends out there and the jobs, of course, and the companies that align with you. And when that happens, naturally, you are going to be that aim and stay person where when you do apply with that portfolio of creations, right, with a natural fit, you will absolutely be a good fit for that role. All right. And then finally, to tie it all up, please just do it. Much is a very good cook, right? So I'm playing on this cooking analogy since I talked about secret sauce. Much is a very good cook doesn't just think and watch webinars and YouTube videos about how to cook. They actually have to do the hard work of gathering the ingredients, then actually cooking. And you know, along the way, when you cook it, then you realize, oh, okay, sorry, I think the heat needs to be higher for this so that I can char it better. Or I need to maybe fry it in a different sequence. Or maybe it's better if I added more garlic here and a dash of salt there. And maybe along the way, I find new recipes. If I want to make chili crab, maybe along the way I realized, maybe I could add some croutons to it. I could add some pasta to it. Maybe I could even add some alcohol down to it to mix it up. Right? DT here stands for design thinking. And that's very crucial. Along the way, as we work out our career, it takes an iterative process. You do it, you gain new insight that you didn't know before, you try. With that new knowledge, you make new things happen. Right? And so with that, I wanted to leave us with this thought. In a crisis, there are only two kinds of people. They're the shapers and the sitters. You decide who you want to be. Wish you the very best of luck. Feel free to connect with me with a short note on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. And back to you, Tony and team. Thank you again for having me.
Okay, thank you, Romei. Yeah, so totally agree with you in the current special time, right? So we should use special tactic, but more importantly, just trying to do, right? Try everything, do nothing too much, and do everything. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Romei, again for your very useful insights. And yeah, so next, let's welcome our second speaker, Jenny Tan. Yeah, so Jenny is the Global Internal Audit Leader at CapitaLand, with more than 10 years of experience in the financial industry in the reputable company like the PwC, OCBC, and including the CapitaLand. Jenny will be sharing with us some strategies to overcome career growth and also the personal development. Okay, so Jenny, over to you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tony and Best Talk to invite me. And I must say, Romei has actually set a very good scene. She has actually set an overview on this whole topic about seizing the opportunity, being creative, and don't just think about it, you have to act on it. So for my part, maybe perhaps I'm not as young as Romy, so, and also due to my career profession as an auditor, I believe everyone would think that auditor is generally a boring group of people. Yeah, but actually we are quite creative, but in our own area. So I would say relativity at work is really a very important thing. So let me just put something up quickly. So as I mentioned, Romy has actually set the scene, yeah, about this whole situation. So then when it comes to my topic, what should I talk about? So when I was preparing for this topic, I thought that I've been in industry for 20 years. I've started off like every one of you here, where, you know, I have graduated from university, and when I need to make my decision on my first job, what should I do? And when I got my job, what's next? I've been an entrepreneur before, I've been a banker, I've been an auditor, and I've also been an equity owner of a firm. You know, all these roles, how do I get there? When I'm there, what should I do? Yeah, so if you're not at that role at this moment, then what should you do next? Or within your current role, should you do something about certain things? Why am I not progressing? And why other people are progressing faster than me? So I think first of all, for one thing, if you don't have any expectation of your career development path, then don't complain, because when you have no expectation, you won't put in effort to plan. Yeah, I mean, if you have expectation and you don't plan and act on it, and that's where all the disparity came about, okay? So for this particular topic, since it's only less than 10-minute kind of situation, I'm trying to squeeze a lot of things in it, but I also thought of, you know, it's about overall, right? So overall, for such a topic, actually, you can take a whole day just to dissect it, because there are just too many permutations, too many dimensions to such things. And everybody's career growth and development path is different. So what I did was I stripped out all the various permutations, etc., and I just focused on the core, the basic. Why? And especially so important in the current situation, especially currently, where there are fewer jobs, but high supply. And employers, like now, when I'm hiring, I take a longer time because I want to hire a better candidate. I want to make sure I hire the right candidate. So on the flip side, on your end, you need to make sure that when the opportunities are not as massive as, you know, the usual times when the economy is booming. So my own advice is that you should look at how to you know, strike it right the first time. I think earlier on, the speaker also touched on, don't just spray your resumes everywhere. It doesn't work. Unless your goal is just to get any job that you want. But I believe if you're attending such a platform, such a summit, that is not your intention. So what I've done was, like I said, I stripped out a lot of permutation and factors and gone down back to the basic. And for me personally, I'm also practicing this thing within my current career, even though I'm really reaching, you know, quite a high position, but I'm still using the same tactics, same strategies to look at it. So I call it my 4 A's approach. I think typically, like Singaporeans, we all like the A's words, right? So just now was a COVID abbreviation. I've got my 4 A's. So what are my 4 A's? So the first A is about awareness. Now, it's easier said than done. When I say self-awareness, how many of you really observe what's going on? You need to observe how people treat you, you know, how you understand yourself, how have you assessed yourself? Yeah, so self-evaluation. I mean, a lot of people don't believe in that, or perhaps if they do believe, they will go through the process and they will just take it lightly. They don't turn the evaluation outcome to become an action plan. So for me, I always, be it now as an individual, I do a lot of self-awareness, self-evaluation, and I gather peer feedback. And even when I'm playing the other side of the role as a management staff, when I lead a department, when I do, you know, career coaching, career development with my own staff, I've also asked them to go through these few steps. So here you may think that it's quite, you know, it's so common. Does it work? let me share with you that in my past 20 years, since I've been practicing it, it worked for me very, very well. And for my coaches and my mentees, I've applied similar techniques and they are all doing very well now. So it's really, what do you want for yourself? So the thing about, I think a lot of youngsters, especially the young ones that I'm working with, a lot of them, they just wanted to, to grab a brand name and then join the company. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But once you get into the door, what's next? That's the key thing. When you get into a door, what's next? How do you grow? So first of all, a lot of them, I've realized that they don't know their goals. So first of all, you need to know what are your goals. Is your goal going to be, reaching a job title in a certain period of time? Or your goal is simply trying to master a skill or, experience certain things. So everyone has different goals. So don't be afraid that your goal is either big or small. There's no right or wrong in that. And making sure that you know what are your success factors. Because to everyone, success means differently. Some people may think that, okay, as long as I get a job, I'm successful at this stage. But, some people, when they've gotten a job, they will set a goal for themselves. In 5 years' time, I want to be a manager. So that's the goal. Now, some people may not have that. So everyone has different success factors. So please put down all these things, because if not, you will never reflect upon what you have gone through the whole year, and you will not achieve the first A in your career development path. Now, this is very important, because if you don't have this awareness within yourself, and if you need a good coach, okay, or even if you meet a normal manager, you can't express things. You can't put your plans on the table to have a healthy discussion with your manager, your supervisor, or your coach. Now, the last bullet point on awareness is about your priorities. Know your priorities. I think every one of us come from different backgrounds. Now, some of us are not worried about financial commitments. So those who are not worried about financial commitment, my advice is look for the substance in the job. Yeah, job description is very important, especially so if you are a fresh grad. Your first 2 to 3 years of your career actually set the foundation for your future growth, okay? So if you are in a financial needing position, nothing to be ashamed about. Like I said, everyone comes from different background. So if that's the case, then your choice of your career path will be different from your peers, okay? The next A is about acknowledgement. So when I'm engaged with a lot of young ones, I've always called them young ones because I'm already in the workforce for 20 years. So those new fresh grads or my junior staff, I will just call them the young ones. So I've realized that when I talk to them about career development, when you ask them what are you good at, because they didn't do awareness well, they will never be able to acknowledge that they are really good at certain things. They will always tell you what they want, what they like to do, not what they are good at, okay? So these are things that you need to ask yourself. Which are the ones that you don't have to put in a lot of effort, and yet the outcome has always been positive and always been good. So you need to identify that, okay? So that will only be identified when you have a lot of, you practice the awareness bucket very well. Now, then look at your strengths and weaknesses. Like it or not, we are not the best in the world. There are better people out there, okay? So once you understand your own strengths and your own weaknesses, you acknowledge them, then you will pay attention to capitalize on your strength and put in effort to work on your weaknesses, or collaborate with your a peer or your colleague to cover or to complement your weaknesses. So all these acknowledgement needs to come in. Now, it's easier said than done. I have not seen a lot of people who can do that. A lot of people just pay lip services, but when they carry out all these career growth, you can usually observe that, like I said, it's a lot easier said than done. The next A, I'm talking about during the workforce, is about alliance. Now, in the current workforce, it's not like in the past where as long as I'm good at something, I shine, okay? In the current situation, no more that, because first of all, information is just too much and too available for everybody, and everyone is as competitive as everyone. So then how to work out the magic balance between team and I? you have to leverage on teamwork to shine. So you need to make sure that you are a good team player, and within the team, you can demonstrate your leadership. How to do that? That is an art, not a science. And then you have to repeat this kind of awareness, the observation of what's going on, to get you to work on this factor about alliance pretty well. And after a few years, you mold yourself, you can do this very well, and you will see that, giving you any task, it will be quite easy to manage. And everyone out there, if you just graduated from university, develop your network. For instance, like picking up a membership with an association. So if you are from accounting, maybe just make sure you join ISCA for Singapore. And when you join as a member, don't just join as a member because you have to be a member, okay? So don't do things for the sake of doing it, okay? You must really believe in it and act upon it. So when you are with an association, you grow your community network, you grow your resources network. That's information flow. You grow your, your base, because don't forget, when you meet with your peers of your similar experience, when you grow, they grow, okay? And you don't know when you need one another. So the network is very important. The last A is about aspire. So if you want to become something that people will treat you as a go-to person, will treat as an inspiring person to model after, there are a few things that you have to work on. Continuous learning. So this continuous learning here is not just about studying. It's about, how do you making sure that things that you carry out at work is progressive. How do you plan everything to be progressive as well? And when you continue to learn, you share, okay? So be a contributor. When you are at career, regardless which position, when I look at my staff, when I do appraisal, so on the flip side, you can think about it. So is this person a selfish person versus a person of similar skills, but is a people person and willing to do slightly more? So for different roles, different considerations, naturally, as a management staff, you will go to somebody who is willing to contribute more, because a person who is more willing to contribute will be less calculative. It's not that you are willing to be shortchanged. That's a different idea, okay? So it's just talking about you are less calculative in being able to look at values beyond just yourself. You want to see how you can make sure and help the company to become better. So this kind of contributor will have great leadership skills going forward. The supervisor, an experienced one, will recognize that. And of course, when you have accumulated enough experience, try to be a coach and then be a mentor. Now, the difference here is a coach can be a short-term and task-oriented, just one thing. Yeah, because not every one of us is good at everything. So some of you can be a cook, some of you can be an auditor, for instance. So we are very different. So do one thing at a time, be good at that. And then as you accumulate your experience, and if you really like this kind of coaching culture or coaching philosophy, you can become a mentor, because a mentor is a longer duration of a role to play, okay? With all this, definitely you can be prepared that you will accelerate. Now, it's easier said than done, but I've done it myself, it worked. Like I said, I've practiced it on my staff, it worked. My coaches, it all worked. Now, the difference is time, because everyone has different timing, different pace, different absorption rate, different opportunities, different environment, lots of permutation. That's why I'm trying to say that there are just too many permutation in this area of discussion point. And of course, coupled with a very good basis of, good attributes, individual attributes and attitude. As a boss, I'll look out for all these, what I call the X factor. Now, you can do your task perfectly fine. You do everything there, but you don't have the X factor. There will be a stagnant role for you to go to. So this is an iterative process, and you need to look at it. How frequently? It depends. I would think that for a start, if you can do it, once a year, that'll be great. But for me, I do it almost all the time. I do it bit by bit, almost all the time. So the red box talked about internal, that's you, yourself. The black box talks about external, how you bring yourself to face the external environment and how to contribute, okay? And I must say to everyone, there is no no right or wrong sometimes when you grow. So don't be too overly ambitious. I've also learned from experience. Sometimes short-term goals are much better to manage, and you don't know how many action items or how many goals you should have. Sometimes I will say that some of the magic number is just the number 3. If in 1 year you can achieve 3 action plans in your whole career, I think that is a very good achievement. But then is 3 the good number? I don't know, because everyone has a different number. And how do you know? Go back to the awareness bucket. You must make sure that you know your goals, your success factors, and your priorities. Then the rest will come along the way. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Jenny. Yeah, it's also very practical advice, right? I agree the part where we first have to understand and have the self-awareness and also know where we are going to, right? So that's why we can identify the gap in between and further to advance our career development. Okay, thank you, Jenny. So yeah, so we have our next speaker on Aiden. Yep. So Aiden is currently the general manager in Baidu. Yeah, so Baidu is one of the largest Chinese technology companies. Yeah, focusing on Chinese language search engine and a lot of other technology elements over there. So with many years of working experience in the tech industry, so he will be sharing us with more on why he chose to develop his career in Baidu and how you can also leverage on your various opportunities so that you can unleash your career potential. So Aiden, over to you.
Sure. Maybe let me also share I actually did prepare something for this session. So first, thanks for having me here. Basically, when we talk about the career potential, for me, it's really about most ask a question. So it's not necessarily to be the I would say how you can pursue your passion, but it's really about how I collect all the career session questions that has been mostly asked from other students. Hopefully all of these questions could be a good help. What I do is I will basically throw out the question and share some of the stories. I cannot promise that I do have the answer for everything, but I'll definitely share the story. So basically trick your thinking. Hopefully you can find a way move forward. So basically when we look at the firstly, may I ask how many, is this a good percentage of the students that is almost a 3rd year or over from the school, or mostly like freshman or 2nd year? Maybe someone can help.
Yeah, so I believe it's a mixture. Yeah, so we have a student and also we have working professionals. Yeah.
Sure. So basically, then I'll go really quick on the on the more kind of a junior question for the 1st year or 2nd year students entering university. So basically, most of the students ask about how they can adapt into a foreign country. There's a couple of related topics regarding how to become independent, how to solve the culture shock and merge into local community. Basically, what I can do is I can share one of the story from basically my own experience. I do have a sister who's also kind of entering the university in California. She used to study English back in China, and then she goes directly to the U.S. to pursue her university. And for that, she's been actually having this what we call the presumption bias here. If you look at the Dunning-Kruger effect, she's actually at the bottom. We call the valley of despair. At that situation, she don't know how to drive a car, and she don't know how to order in the restaurant, and she don't know how to basically buy books on the campus. And that's basically her, her rock bottom. I would say along her growth all the way to, kind of the university. So at that time, I kind of noticed that, so that's basically my younger sister. So I kind of noticed that she's actually have, not knowing that she's actually, if you look at the red line, she's actually above the valley of despair, meaning that she actually has the capability, but she just don't believe in herself. So at that time, so we actually have a long talk, and we share a little bit about, I share a little bit of my experience and just being a company. And later on, she actually put up a little bit so that she can move on and start learn how to drive a car and move forward to actually overcome more things. So one of the learning from her experience is that when you actually hit a rock bottom, really look at the graph and see how you perceive yourself, and you're actually better in a lot of times. So move forward, a second question that has been asked a lot from some of the career sessions about the major selection. A lot of people, they have the question around, do they choose something they like or follow the trend, or just find someone that is something that is very easy to pass. I'll share one of the story that I prepared. One of my colleague, that when I was working in General Electric, I have a colleague who is also a operations management leadership program. So it's a management trainee program. He actually start his university with an engineering degree, and he joined GE as a training, as a management trainee, doing all the operations. And then he joined GE Lighting to do a SQE work, which is a supplier quality engineer work. And then he actually started a escalator company by himself. And then he actually become a landlord of a hotel. And then he become a kind of I would say a investor in the F&B industry. So very interesting path. He's actually a very good friend of mine. So we usually catch up every once in a while. From his kind of path, it would be very hard to say how the major actually matters a lot for his kind of the whole career goal. So like one of the things that we do think that is really important is probably learn some of the very useful skills. I would say hard skills. For example, it could be a new language. It could be a public speaking skills, or it could be a logic. Right. So how you can do a better reasoning. All of this could be a good. Or even programming, right? So all of these hard skills actually matters when you move forward. So that basically is one of the story from him. And another thing is, should we follow the trend? Maybe we can also talk a little bit about that. With that, I actually prepared one of the graphs. Here, one of the suggestions would be how you can really think of the trend in a 10 years vision. Meaning, if you look at the graph, you see the population goes nicely with the PC trend, right? So if you work in a PC industry, then you know what kind of growth you have over the 10 or even 20, 30 years, right? But if you really work in a mobile industry in 2000, in the year of 2000, you can see your curve is very different than PC curve, right? And then if you actually work in a mobile industry in 2010, then you can see the curve is very, very different compared to the PC curve, even the mobile curve, right? So then that basically gives you another question. Now we are 2020, right? We're at 2020. What do you think the next curve could be, right? It's going to be quantum computing. It could be a new battery, or it could be autonomous driving. It could be something else, right? So that is the question that you probably want to think in a longer time slot. So that's basically something that that I shared before to some of the other sessions. Really encourage you guys, when you think about the trend, think the trend in a longer period. All right. So then basically the next, usually the next most asked question will be, should I take a master or PhD degree after the university? So, you know, there could be a few different topics into it, but what I want to share is that when you actually go to a company, like a private company, usually there will be two types of strong contributors to the company. One type of the people really connect people, right? So they connect people. They're really good at that. And there's also some of the other type of people who are experts on a certain field, right? So there also could be someone who can be a good mix, right? So at that, you know, I would say one of the good example that I have been working quite closely with for quite a long time is one of my colleagues is called Dr. Tao. He's actually a NTU, the NTU PhD from Singapore. So he actually studied the engineering for his undergrad, and I think it's algorithm on his PhD. And then he joined the company as an engineer. So which is more like a expert, right, in a certain field. And he's doing a lot of autonomous driving projects. And then he moved, he basically moved up to the next level, like a manager of the engineer. At that time, you still focus on the, developing technology. At the same time, you still need to know how to communicate with people, right? And then later on, move to a GM of a certain new business unit, right? So at that time, then he actually become a mix of both type of the, I would say a strong contributor, right? So there's not, from what I say, there's not a right path to choose to say, I need to go to a master degree or a PhD before working, or I should go to work first. It really depends on at a certain time what kind of a goal you are perceiving, like what kind of what type of I would say professionals you want to be at the very beginning. And then probably the last question. So and then some of the more kind of a obvious question will be how to choose a path. That could be a few topics here, like, do you want to find something with your passion, or with something you're good at? For that, you can think about the trend that I just described before. But what I wanted to probably share a little bit more is that usually for people who's basically at the tech role, if they want to move to a commercial role, usually that could be easily managed, or I would say it would be likely to do so. But if some of the ones who's actually doing a commercial role and they want to switch to a tech role, that will be a little bit harder. Usually you probably need to reposition yourself and also pursue some sort of external education to do that. So that's basically a few of the most asked questions that I collected from previous sessions. Yeah, that's basically all my sharing. Back to Tony.
Hey, Aidan. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so actually I recall myself, I'm also a PhD from US. Yeah, so, but now I didn't in the academic area and yeah, running my own startup. So I mean, yeah, so different people, we all have different potentials. Yeah, it all depends on how we chose and how we assess ourselves. Okay, again, thank you very much for your sharing. So
Sure.
next, yeah, okay, next we have our next speaker, Sotis. Yeah, Sotis Dramatis. Sotis is currently the Vice President and Head of Marketing at Oracle and also the Advisory Board Member of CMO Council. Sotis assisted Oracle by doubling marketing revenue within the first year on the job under his leadership. And Oracle received the award of Best Brand Asia by CMO Asia. So being in a leadership position himself, he will be sharing with us more on the topic of master plan to become the better of yourself. Sotis, please.
Great, thank you very much. Let me just start my camera so that those who want to see my face can actually see me. I hope it's working. So thank you all, everybody. While I'll bring up my slides that I want to share, I'll share a little bit more about myself. My name is Sotis Dramalis. I'm originally from Germany, although my name, as some of you might be able to guess, is actually Greek. I'm of Greek and German descent. I've been living in Singapore. It's almost been 3 years now since I'm back. I used to live in Singapore prior to that for 5 years, actually. Apart from Singapore, I've been living in Europe, in Greece and Germany, in South Africa, and in New York, where I did a 2-year stint in between my 2 times of living in Singapore. I will just bring up the slide, and I hope everybody can see it. As the moderator mentioned, I'm currently working for Oracle in Singapore as Vice President of Marketing for the Asia Pacific and Japan region. I spent 14 years of my prior life with SAP, another IT applications company, where I initially joined and started my career a long time ago. And that's what took me to a couple of continents, right? I think you can all look up my profile on LinkedIn. I think it's just statistics, but I thought I'll share a little bit of a personal sort of background with me, which is what this current slide in a way illustrates, and I'll come back to why I'm actually sharing the slide, in the later part of my chat with you guys. I'll start with the centerpiece of the presentation. I think values are very important in life. They're very different, for very, all sorts of people, depending on your cultural background, your age, your lifestyle, etc. But I think it is important that you have them in life, and that you apply them in your work, in your career, during your time at university, right? For me personally, the 2 most important values that I appreciate the most are consistency and honesty, right? I think it is very important, to be honest to yourself and to be honest to others, and to act in a consistent manner, right? I always tell people, if somebody is very grumpy, I can handle such people because I know tomorrow and the day after they will be grumpy people as well, but it also makes them consistent and predictable in a way, right? The things I care about in life, those are the other pictures that you see here. And I think in a way, they're also my sources of energy, which I think is very important, to consider what gives you energy as you go through your career. I'm a fan of beaches, the 50% Greek in me loves, oceans and beaches. So I think living in Southeast Asia is a great thing. I do like to travel. I'm a huge fan of Singapore Airlines. It's one of my favorite brands on the planet, and I can't wait, for things to improve, for all of us to start traveling, if that's what you want. The things that I think I can do in lockdown, I also like, watching movies. So Netflix is, one of my favorite activities right now, and I'm a foodie, as one of the other pictures can tell you. I think I embrace every culture's cuisine. I never came across any country or any culture whose food I didn't appreciate. You see a little picture of my niece. That is my niece Sophia, who I absolutely adore. In my free time, I like to play volleyball. I also enjoy foot massages. I think it is one of the best things on the planet. And I think, I mentioned that I lived, and worked, in a lot of countries, which I think, gives me a relatively well-rounded experience, right? The reason why I'm showing you this slide, is not just to talk about myself. I think you should all think about, what drives and motivates you in life, as you choose your career path. I always think your first job is, going to be very important, no matter where you end up, but it will determine where you will be in 10 years, in 20 years, and in 30 years. Destiny has its own way, of working miracles. But I think your values, will be what, becomes the glue in your career. And as part of that, the things that you like and you dislike, of course, and what your energy sources are, because you will go through ups and downs. That's why I think, not only work-life balance, but I think work-life integration is a very important aspect. I'll proceed to this slide, which I wanted to share. I do mentor and coach a lot of people, a lot of young people, in the companies that I've worked for. And a lot of them very often do not know where to get started when it comes, to their career plan or to their development plan. So I sort of, put that slide together, based on some criteria or dimensions that I always consider myself, and I found them to be helpful for others. Being in marketing, I think the brand that you work for, is incredibly important. It can be a big brand, it can be a smaller brand. The story in life, or the event in life rather, that made me realize this, when I worked in South Africa, actually a recruiter once spoke to me, a headhunter, and she was telling me that I have a very, very good CV, a great CV. And at that point in my career, I had only worked for SAP. I remember her telling me, that had I had exactly the same jobs at Microsoft, my market value, my salary would be worth double than what I could earn in the market. That made me realize that obviously the brand, the name of the company that you work for is incredibly important. The location is a big factor. Where you want to live, it has to do with the integration of your life and your job and your career. But it has a lot of interesting dimensions to consider. When I started my career, location was very important, right? Because in most companies, you still had to physically show up for work every day. Working remotely or virtually was not as common as it is nowadays. Another thing why I think location is important is it's going to become very attractive to live in tier 2 cities, in the future. Not necessarily the Singapores and New Yorks and Londons of the world only. So watch that space, because I think, your location actually is going to become a differentiator as well. At the same point in time, I think you do need to spend time, in your career, in whatever company you become part of, wherever your headquarter is, or wherever, a major regional location is for whatever company you work for. They're often centers of gravity, where you get observed by the right people, where you network with the right people, and people and your networks, become a major component of your career that will determine your future. So think about where you want to be, but also where you can meet the right people that can support your career and become influencers in the way forward for you. There's always a debate, if you want to be a generalist or a specialist, in whatever you do, right? Whether you're an HR professional or a marketing professional, you could be in marketing and focus on market research, or you could be in marketing and focus on digital marketing, for example. But you could also be a product manager, right? That deals with everything a little bit, right? In the past, it was very clear that people either developed a generalist or a specialist path, like a product manager versus a digital marketing manager, as per my example. I personally actually believe the future looks more T-shaped, right? Meaning you have to be broad, but also deep in one area. Therefore, my career advice would be, as you get going in your career, try to rotate and experiment with both generalist and specialist role in whatever function you pick, whatever line of business you want to become part of, until you actually settle somewhere, right? It will be beneficial for your future. The managerial aspects of work, I think, are incredibly important as well, right? I always tell people that a job, might look extremely boring on paper, on the job advert or the job description. But if you actually work for the right person, the right manager, the job can be extremely funny and rewarding, right? And vice versa, a job might look amazing on paper, but if the people aspects, the managers, the co-workers you have, etc., are not providing you with the environment that you want to be part of, where you want to associate yourself, such a job can also be a nightmare, right? And I've been there, not in Singapore, but in some other countries where I worked in. So don't underestimate the role a manager plays in your job, but also in your future when you need them as a reference or just as a friend as you get along. At one point in life, you will reach also the point in your career where you have to decide, do you want to become a people manager and coach and mentor and direct other people's work? Or do you just want to focus on being an expert, in whatever you end up doing? It's a tricky one, to be honest, right? Because I always think that sometimes people become people managers for the wrong reason. They enjoy the title, they believe it is coming with a higher salary, or it is just a status symbol in that context. I believe that, it's not made for everybody. Being an expert, can be financially equally rewarding in most companies. And when you become a manager, you have to be very good in managing people, right? It is not so much actually about the work that you do, but if you don't like, dealing with other people's challenges, their problems, being there to help them being successful, I would almost advise you not to consider ever being a people manager. It is actually, being a people manager is the most altruistic thing I think you can do in life, because you actually decide to always be there for others, and make other people, the people on your team, a priority, and a bigger priority, than what your own career, sometimes means. So consider that, it is at the same time obviously very purposeful, very meaningful, to become a people manager if you do it for the right reasons, but you need the right intrinsic motivation to do it. Don't do it for any external factors, so to say. So this is in a way a framework that I always shared with people that I coach or mentor on their careers, and what I ask them to think about, as they get going in their career and structure their training and development activities. This is something that I wanted to share. This is something that a lady in America who was one of my managers, when I was really young in my early 20s, she actually once gave me this rule of thumb, which for me was very applicable, when I look at my CV and how things worked out for me. This is maybe a bit of an American perspective on things, because for me it was eye-opening being in Germany at that point in time, where normally the philosophy of work was centered around getting into a company, as a university graduate, and ideally, looking at a hire to retire sort of scenario where you join, as a trainee, and ultimately, retire and take a pension, from that employer. It was eye-opening because this lady from America who I worked for at the time actually had a very different philosophy, maybe, something that at that point in time was more common in the United States than in Germany. She told me that her rule of thumb is that after 2 years, you can change jobs. After 3 years, you should. After 4 years, she said, you absolutely must change jobs. Not only for selfish reasons like, earning more money and making salary jumps, but also, to show, to reflect a growth mindset on your CV and not to become too comfortable or stagnant in life. And I realized that this is a very valuable rule of thumb or guideline, especially if you are in your early 20s, mid 20s, etc., where you should really, be out and about and experiment, with different roles, with different companies, because it does become, more and more difficult, to do that. So do change jobs frequently if you have the opportunity to do so, and be proactive about it. Don't just let other companies talk to you, talk to other companies as well. There's a lot of studies out there that if you would stay with the same company your entire life, you lose out on 50% of your potential income in your lifetime as a human being. Right? If you do change jobs a couple of times, you double your income, during your life as a human being on average. Of course, you need a little bit of luck along the way, but that is what the research, and the empirical findings tell us. I thought in wrapping up, I'll share some lessons learned, my do's and don'ts that I think, are generic enough, but also specific enough, hopefully to at least a few of you. Let me start with the don'ts maybe, right? Since I just spoke about don't stay too long with, the same company or the same role, it is also totally okay, to take different roles within the same company. Think about what I did in my 14 years at SAP, and the countries and the continents that I visited. I did speak about your relationships with people, whether it's your manager, your co-workers, your peers. I think it is incredibly important to never burn bridges in life, and therefore also not in your professional environment. You never know when you meet people again. You will realize that whatever industry you become part of, whether you end up working in banking, in consumer products, in IT, even in NGOs and in governments, every industry is extremely small. And sometimes there's not even 6 degrees of separation. There's, potentially 1 or 2, depending, where you end up working. So do manage your reputation and your relationships with others. I think what coronavirus, and this pandemic kind of, I think taught us again, is that actually the only asset in life that is not replenishable is time, right? Time is pretty much linear. Our life has a start and a stop sort of date attached to it. Of course, you can believe in various, forms of religions and philosophy where things become more of a cycle. But I think the way you exist nowadays, comes with birth and unfortunately also with death, which makes time your most important asset in life. What I mean by that is that jobs, titles, money, they all come and go. If you can wait for them, for the right opportunities, they will always be there in life. But it is your time that is very important, right? And how you enjoy yourself. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about the do's. I'm, of course, a big advocate of, building a global and international profile as much as you can, whether you do that via your studies or your professional experiences. So do try and work and study abroad. Most companies do support it for you to go on assignments and transfer to other offices worldwide. And of course, if you're still at university, there is multiple, opportunities to do so, via the various programs that your international offices, might be offering. Depending on what career path you choose, but for me, I found it very interesting to do country roles in marketing, to do regional marketing roles, for example, for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but also Asia Pacific, and to do global roles out of an headquarter location. Whatever your line of business is that you eventually become part of, keep that in mind. I think it gives you a lot of empathy on what everybody in your department is experiencing and what sort of a value chain looks like and how you can contribute to it. I think it gives you a very good 360-degree profile and will make you a very valuable talent, to current and future employers. The ultimate advice, you would notice that, a red thread, in everything I'm saying here is people. And for me, one of the conclusions is that you do work for people. You do not work for companies. When you resign on people. You don't resign on your actual company, the legal entity. It also means, you know, if a great manager will take you with him or with her as they progress in their career, right? Whether they get promoted in the company or whether they move to other companies in the industry. So keep that in mind. You will also need them at some point in your life, you know, to be your references, which is very, very important. The last two is to not be reactive when it comes to applying for jobs. I think people nowadays, especially young people, are still very shy when it comes to talking to other, you know, potential departments, to people in different companies, in different lines of businesses about roles in their departments. I always say when a job is advertised, you know, the chances are that there's already a lot of candidates that a company or a hiring manager has in mind, right? But it's a great thing, you know, to be considered for a job, you know, before it even gets advertised. And this is really when you actually find the great jobs, you know, that are rather unique, you know, before hundreds, you know, of people, you know, get to know about it and apply for these roles. I believe I have one more slide. The story behind this slide is not just, you know, Albert Einstein, you know, about, you know, to be curious, you know, and passionate. It is something that I remember when I sort of finished, you know, my education, high school and university. I remember one of my very, very first interviews was not with SAP, but with another German company, Siemens, you know, the engineering sort of high-tech company. And I remember the lady from HR, you know, it was in their office in Frankfurt in Germany. I remember the lady from HR asked me what my objective is in life, you know, and I was probably 21, 22 years old. I can't remember exactly. But I remember answering her that my objective in life is to die as a wise man. And what I meant by that, you know, is that I'm committed to lifelong learning. And I think that is probably the best advice I could give to anybody, because probably everything you have learned at university or in your first, you know, 5 or 10 years in any job, in any profession, will probably all radically change. You know, in the next 10 years, 20 years, we all probably will have to work until we're 60 plus, you know, chances are that will be the case. It means, you know, we never can give up learning, because, you know, if we want to be competitive in the labor market and as talents, we continuously need to invest in our skills. And that is not only our technical or functional knowledge, it is predominantly our soft skills and ultimately our leadership skills as we progress in life. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sotis. Yeah, very concrete, yeah, sharing on the career dimensions. And yeah, so your last slides, right? Keep learning, the lifelong learning is something quite related to our current situation, right? Because everything is changing and we do have to adapt to different situations. For us, we are also learning to hold the event online. Yeah, even though there's a lot of technical issues there, but yeah, we have to learn. Okay, again, thank you very much, Sotis. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we have, now we move to our last speaker. Yeah, last but not least. Yeah, so our last speaker is Chen Zhu. She is a co-founder of Mana Impact Partner Limited and also the co-head of Impact Investment. Mana Impact Partners is an impact investment firm that provides advisory services and also makes impact investments. So before founding her own company, she worked as vice president of JP Morgan. So Chen Zhu will be sharing more on the innovation and also the topic relating to some impact investments, yeah, from her own experience. So she will be covering more on how to shift your mindset and also overcome the fear, especially during current situation. So welcome, Chen Zhu.
Thank you, Tony. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. Okay, everyone, my name is Chen. Actually, I went to Fudan for my undergraduate and then went to Johns Hopkins for my master's degree. And my major has always been in international relations. So very appreciate that BestTalk invite me to this event so I can share some of my experience with the audience. I was told that given COVID-19, many of the audience feel a lot of uncertainties about future, especially career-wise. So tonight, for the first part, I will share some of my thoughts. And the second part, I would like to give you a brief introduction on impact investment, which is what I'm doing now. And for the first part, I think I want to do it through sharing 3 Chinese quotes because I'm actually a fan of classic Chinese culture myself. And the first one is 看人生不如意事十常八九. In English, it means most things in life do not go very smoothly. Actually, when I graduated from Fudan, that was the year of SARS. And when I just started my career in financial market, global financial crisis hit the ground. So if any of you think your life now is, not very well or very miserable even, I think I can only say congratulations. That is because you probably still very young. You still have, this is the first time you experience this kind of difficulties. I actually think it is a good thing for us to experience some negative things in the early stage of our life. So we can learn how to manage crisis, improve our mental strength, and we will become more resilient for the next crisis and more prepared to take on more demanding tasks in the future as well. I guess if not because of the financial crisis that happened in my early career, I would never even thought of about quitting my banking job and do what I really want to do now. And the second quote is 上得无为而无以为，下得为之而有以为. This one is a bit more difficult. So I actually Google searches before this session. In English, it says, a man of the great virtue remains inactive without deliberately manifesting his virtue. But a man of the small benevolence keeps being active, always deliberately manifesting his virtue. Well, I actually wanted to, interpret the way that we do not have to buy in everyone to say that I am or you are the best or very successful. Even, since I left the bank for impact investment for the, I have spent time in impact investment for 3 years now, there's still a lot of questions and doubts from people surrounding me. But I'm very happy with what I have now. And I guess, BestTalk still invites me to share. Assume I'm not doing too bad. I'm just thinking that there are, a lot of capable people working in the banking industry already. And why don't we try to do something else if we think we can? Life actually can be thriving in different ways. So I think we should be open-minded and, be nice to ourselves. Even if our choice is not mainstream career development, I think it is okay because we don't really know what the future will be like. So just be open-minded. And the last quote is 一张一弛，本无之道也. I think this is an easy one. It means work-life balance. I guess given the COVID-19, when the lockdown just started in Hong Kong, or I should call it social distancing, there were limited distractions in my life as well. And then I ended up working nonstop, and soon I burned out myself and I could not really focus and becomes less efficient. And from that, I think all of us learn when the market is low or opportunities are less, just take some rest. It is useless to just stress out. Let's read more books, do more exercise, try something new, and then maybe you will find some ideas which lead us to new opportunities. I always think working or career is just part of our life. To really understand ourselves and the value of our life is probably the longer journey we need to be aware. So with that, actually, I want to share something new with everyone that's about impact investment. So can I ask the BestTalk team to share the video if you can?
The economy wasn't created to make money. The economy was created to add value to the collective. So you can say that the world is in need of some serious shifting. And since you're watching this video, you're probably aware of this too. And you recognize the need for change. This is a story about choice. And this might be a story about your future plans. Impact investing. According to research by the Financial Times, the amount of capital invested in impact has doubled over the last 5 years. But what is it exactly? The most accepted definition for impact investing is investing with the specific objective of achieving positive social and/or environmental impact as well as financial return. So a positive impact and financial return. Just to make you a bit more familiar with the term, let's place it on a scale with other sorts of investments. On the right, you see traditional investing. This is what we call investing for the sole purpose of financial return with no impact objectives. With responsible investing, we filter out harmful investments like weapons or tobacco, for example. When you're into sustainable investing, you invest in companies that take into account environmental, social, and governance criteria. Think water and energy efficiency. Or an apparel company with strong policies protecting fair labour conditions, still with a focus on the financial side of the investments. Starting here, the philosophy behind the investment slowly moves from do no harm to intentionally do good, which is the essence of impact investing. But before we dive into this, let's finish telling you what it's not. With venture philanthropy, you invest in social purpose organisations, taking high financial risks in order to drive the organisation's impact. Traditional philanthropy is grant-based funding of social purpose organisations, often simply donating money to create maximum impact. Now, impact investing. Impact investing is not an asset class. It is an investment approach across all asset classes, themes and geographies, and has a full range of risks and returns. For example, impact investments can range from a direct private equity investment in a fintech company providing access to finance to underserved populations, to a loan supporting sustainable agricultural business, or from a note subscription in a renewable energy fund to a share purchase in a sustainable forestry fund. As we said, it's about intentional impact and financial returns. When looking at the impact side, one can ask, what's your taste of good? Where do you want to create impact? This can be in services or in products provided, such as building solar-powered lamps for developing regions, developing natural washing products, or producing healthy foods. Impact can also be made in the way businesses are run, or even on multiple levels, such as safeguarding the mining of fair raw materials, honest working conditions, waste management, or offering jobs to those who have less opportunities. Such front-runner companies aim to change the entire industry they work in. Financial profit can be made in countless proven and unproven business cases. So, as with traditional investing, deciding which business models have potential is art, science, and all the fun of investing at the same time. When considering to start impact investing, there are a few things we can advise. Decide on what you care about and what your strategy is to approach this. Carve out some funds to experiment and learn from experienced peers, professionals, and intermediaries. Then, just get started. Don't wait. Environmental challenges and social structures need attention now more than ever, so consider that you're doing this for the generations to come. Like we said, this is a story about choice. You can choose where your money creates the impact we need for tomorrow's world.
Thank you for sharing this. Actually, this is done by one of the impact investment company, not Mana. So I'm just using it because I think it's really nice. I think the reason I come to impact investment because I feel there are so many issues about how our world is run, and I want to look for constructive solutions. I think I really want to emphasize that I think a lot of people, I think it's easier for people to say no to a lot of things. But I think it is more meaningful for us to actually provide a solution rather than just saying no. So I think to have constructive solutions rather than solutions is very important. And we're looking for, more innovative entrepreneurs to come up as well in this space. And to close this session, I want to quote my university Fudan's own official motto. We call it 自由而无用. I think in English it means liberty rather than utility. This is especially for those who accepted higher education from the elite universities. I believe we can do more than merely repeating other people's mental process, but rather to have the capability to provide innovative and constructive solutions. And if we are capable to do so, why we should be fear of the uncertainties? We can always have a solution, and let's just be confident about ourselves. And that's my session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chenju. Yeah, so I believe most of us know financial investment and also other form of investment, right? So the impact investment will be quite new to most of you, right? So I believe this is something to expand our horizon. Yeah, and also thank you very much for the good sharing. So now I have another way, right, where we can towards on, right, in terms of investment. Okay, so thank you very much. So now we came to the end of today's virtual summit. Yeah, but please allow me a few more minutes. Yep. So yeah, we have actually we have a upcoming event. Yep. So this is our lunch and learn. Yeah, happening in 12th June. Yeah. So if you are still feeling that today's the speaker sharing is very short, right? So this session, lunch and learn session, will be joined by our first keynote speaker, Roman, yeah, and also delivered by our VIP director, Daphne. So both of them will conduct a very interactive sessions. Yeah, so if you have any question, yeah, you can just came directly to the event. It's free of charge. Yeah, so you can just scan the barcode here. Yeah, so you can freely register, and we hope we can address your concern, your questions, yeah, during that event. Okay, so and yeah, one more thing. So since at the very beginning, I say we have been collaborating with quite a few universities, our partners here, right? So especially the university from Hong Kong, right? So we BestTalk, yeah, we do offer some remote internship opportunity by our own, right? So if you are students, yeah, from our partnering university from Hong Kong, yeah, so why not you can send in your resume to our email address if you miss out the university mass email. Yeah, so you can still contact us at contact@besttalkkorea.com. Yeah, or you can scan the QR code here and via WeChat. Yeah, so we do hope we can see you guys, yeah, remotely. Yeah, so this is something. Yeah, and the last but not least, I just let me remind you, right? Please feel free to join our Telegram group. Yeah, so far I see we have 70 participants join our Telegram group. And today our recording will be recorded and we will be only share in the Telegram group channel there, right? Okay, so feel free to join. You can scan the QR code here, and also you can find in the chat, in the chat function over there, we have address over there. And I think that's all from us. Thank you very much for taking your time to join our first virtual career summit Singapore. Yeah, and my apologize, right, at the very beginning due to some technical glitch. Yeah, so I disappeared for 1 minute. Yeah, please allow me over there, right, as I shared. Yeah, we are all learning and we are all adapting to the changing environment. I think same to you, same to your career development, and hopefully we can all figure out a way how we can further advance our career development. Okay, so thank you again, and hope to see you in our next event. Bye bye.